Hello,
Mr.
everybody.
Tom, how you doing today?
Oh, running like crazy, like usual. So I am cutting it to the wire here.
That is okay.
So let's start with the roll call here. I grab my agenda quick as we do that.
Oh, I can share screen so everybody can see that as well.
Oh, that'd be great.
Where do I have that? All right. All right. So committee chair, Tom Handy,
Here.
council chair, Damon Doyle. Not hearing him here today. Council vice chair, Todd Bayrither.
Here.
MBPE committee chair, Jay Arnold.
Here.
Thank you. BFRW committee chair, Roger Heringa.
Here.
Thank you. Council member, Chell Anderson.
I'm here.
Thank you. And council member Matthew Hepner. I'm not seeing them in the room today. And then council ex officio member Representative Alex Ramel. I'm not seeing them online today either. With that, we do have a quorum. We've got 5 seats out of the 4 needed to have quorum here today.
Very good. Next on the agenda then is well, if there's anybody from the public that would like to be recognized, if you'd raise your hand, that would be great. Elizabeth?
Yeah, Elizabeth Torsky with Cascade Natural Gas.
Welcome. Patrick?
Yes, thank you. This is Patrick Hanks with the Building Industry Association of Washington.
Welcome, Patrick. Anybody else? All right, then we'll move on to review and approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 No.
Motion carries. I'm sorry. Was somebody trying to comment? Okay, maybe not.
We're just getting some feedback through open audios at the moment.
Okay. Then the next thing on the agenda is to review and approve the minutes from the previous week's meeting.
So moved.
It's been moved, awaiting a second.
A second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, seeing no hands raised. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, motion carries. Next on the agenda then is the legislative update. Dustin.
Yes, so what you see here on the screen is the spreadsheet that was requested at last week's meeting. So essentially we have a listing of our bills that have come across the notice of my desk, and I'm trying to make them available to you guys to let you know what's happening out there. Looking at what we have going on here at the top, HB 1010, HB 1015, HB 1029, HB 1183, and HB 1254, we have all heard before. So starting at HB 1345, we have a new one establishing limitations on detached accessory dwelling units outside of urban growth areas. This one doesn't really impact SBCC, and we are having recommending a position of neutral with a low priority. HB 1353 establishes a self-certification program for accessory dwelling units with some project permit applications. This one doesn't directly affect doesn't directly affect SBCC. But there may be some concerns coming out of the local jurisdiction arena. This would for sure reduce cost for constructing detached ADUs, but they are pretty much letting architects self-certify the application package to come through. So there's some caveats in there, but there may be some current concerns coming out as far as building regulation and what that does. But for this one, we're recommending a position of neutral with a priority low since it doesn't direct us to do anything specific. HB 1458 is a hot topic one that's come across my desk and I haven't had a chance to fully review it. This is a reducing embodied carbon emissions of buildings and building materials. So as all of you guys know, we've had a lot of input on embodied carbon, and this is one that I anticipate we'll have some conversations on a bit more. Before we come back to this one, I'd like to just finish an introduction of the rest of the new bills that we didn't discuss last week. And then we'll circle back to the higher priority ones that are of interest at the moment. Looking beyond that one, we've got HB 1462, which is reducing greenhouse gas emissions associated with hydrofluorocarbons. This one doesn't affect the SBCC, and we are recommending a position of neutral with monitoring to see if there's anything that does develop on that one. And then we get to HB 1497, which is improving outcomes associated with waste material management systems. This one is talking about reducing and making provisions for recycling containers and things like that. It doesn't direct SBCC to do anything in particular. And this one is, I've completed the review on this one, but was after we submitted this out here for today's meeting. So this one is a neutral and monitoring. Then we get into the Senate bills. Senate Bill SB 5055 is a new one promoting agritourism in Washington. This one I think will be a little interesting. I haven't completed the review on it, but they are asking to have let me get it right. Agricultural buildings used for agritourism purposes that are only open for 6 months of the year to not be subject to extra requirements contained within the commercial building code. So that one's a little interesting, but it's not high priority right this second. It's not coming up for any hearings right away, and I'll have a review completed here by end of week. Senate Bill 5156 we heard last week. This one, we testified with concerns on the location of the requirement in the State Building Code Council, RCW. The Department of Labor and Industries also testified that they would like that requirement in their RCW instead of our RCW. And so I think that we'll get some good movement on that one. Senate Bill 5190 is another one we heard last week, which is a recommend position neutral with priority low, and allows school districts to request extensions on energy performance reporting deadlines. Then we have Senate Bill 5249 concerning the siting of kit homes. This one we heard last week as well, with recommending a position of neutral with a monitoring. There's a small concern, but not a huge amount of concern for what is being put out there. It's typically a factory assembled structure type project going out, and local jurisdictions will likely have some foundation work that is associated with this, but won't necessarily affect the SBCC as current drafted. Then we get to some new ones. We have Senate Bill 5429, which I anticipate to be a interesting one. It concerns the membership in the State Building Code Council, seeks to add 6 additional members to our council. And I haven't finished the review on this one, but it's looking to bring more diverse building perspectives to the council for us. So that's Senate Bill 5429. Todd, it looks like you were looking at that one pretty close there for a second. Next on the list, we have, oh, no, I'm not scrolling appropriately, sorry. Next on the list, we have Senate Bill 5438, which is reducing greenhouse gas emissions associated with hydrofluorocarbons. This one, we're recommending a position of neutral while we monitor. This one doesn't ask SBCC to do anything. It does put some stuff into our RCW bill. With that, I'd like to rewind back to House Bill 1254, the implementing the International Wildland Urban Interface Code. We talked about this one a little bit last week, and the changes we testified about in the last legislative session are being made. And what I wanted to talk about specifically on this one is we got a email from a representative of WABO recommending that we not implement the WUI code until November 1 of 2029. And I wanted to open it up for discussion. I believe the intent of this bill is to get the WUI code active as soon as possible. But I'd like to hear from the group here if doing that work alongside of the remainder of the 2024 work is feasible for the council. I want to discuss what it would look like to include it in the 2024 code if we don't have the maps completed by DNR, and then what the date suggested by WABO might mean for us in the future interacting with this one. So I see a hand raised. Angela, I'd like to yield to you.
Yeah, I'm not sure when you got that comment from WABO. We actually discussed this yesterday. As far as, I guess, we had some questions as far as, was the council planning on moving forward with the WUI for the 2024 so that it would be, be able to be implemented as soon as the maps are done. And then what was the other? Sorry. And I think if I remember correctly, the overall consensus was we would like to see it be in the 2024. So we actually would like to see the WUI tag move forward. But I was asked to sort of check and see if that was actually the intent of the council to do that. And then we also have a question on the bill itself on section 2, subsections 2 and 3. If the legislative council, if SBC, this group has an issue with that language, in my opinion, it appears to kind of be a holdover from when they put sections of the code in, because subsection 2 seems to basically give jurisdictions the ability to not use the state code. It says that counties, cities, and towns may adopt basically the WUI published by ICC in whole or in any portion thereof. And that was like an option, I think, before, like when this came through with the language in there. And then the third one seems to be language that, again, basically confuses things for using the council adopted code. And so I just wasn't sure if that had been looked at, and maybe you disagree. But again, moving forward with the WUI for the 24th cycle would be our preference. And also, I don't know if anybody watched the hearing on this yesterday, but there's a lot of people that are basically blaming SBCC for the horrible maps and everything like that, and saying that they completely mistrust the council on this, and that they don't have any they don't believe that, you know, we will technically come out with anything better. So I don't know if the council wants to address that at the hearings, if this group, I know you guys had talked about, you know, doing it, but just things to think about. Thank you.
So first, I want to clarify my first statement about getting a comment from WABO. I did get something from Micah, who was our former WABO representative. And so I always associate his name with Wabo, and so that's my mistake. So I got one from Micah, it was from his main job email, and so he's suggesting some modifications in section 2, subsection 1, and giving clear direction on an adoption date. At that hearing yesterday, I did hear lots of criticism, and looking forward to the 2024 version of the WUI code. The first step is to convene that WUI code tag and then see what working with that code looks like in the absence of maps, and how we can make that work for jurisdictions across Washington. So as far as what I expect to come out of that, I wasn't part of the 2021 or 2018 versions of the WUI code. I wasn't working with SBCC at that time. And so I'm going to rely on the folks who know the subject matter better than I to kind of inform on what we can expect to get from the WUI code this next season. I think that 2029 is maybe a little bit far-sighted for implementation, and maybe doing 2021 codes might be a little bit difficult as well. But I fully intend to convene the WUI code tag and work towards 2024 WUI code that can work in the environment we find ourselves in. I don't know if I addressed everything you spoke on, Andrea, I'm sorry, not Andrea, Angela, and I will call on Chell.
Thanks. Yeah, I think there were a confluence of factors that made the WUI code not successful. And just as I kind of recollect on what it was, I think the maps were unavailable to SBCC until the final adoption. And I think once we saw the maps, we were concerned. But I guess didn't do anything about that concern, because it was the very last minute before we adopted the code. My question was about when, or if we have a date when the new maps would be completed, because based on that last experience, they just didn't work well together. There were some issues with the code itself, but primarily it was how it works with the maps.
As far as a date, I don't have a date in hand, but I do have contact that has been made with DNR, with the folks overseeing the map creation. And so they're looking to integrate with us, and they have a spot on the WUI code tag. And I fully intend to bring them into that fold, although I don't have an application from them for that seat right this moment. So I would expect that more information will be forthcoming in the near future. And Tom?
Yeah, I was actually just going to talk about that. Whitman County is working on a city PP right now. We've got a DNR rep on that, our group. They had mentioned that work on those maps has been delayed. They had originally earmarked about 2 years for completion on that. Indication we got is that it has not even been started yet, and that they do not have a completion date targeted. Now that was what I heard from them. I don't know that that's the person who does the actual scheduling of the work, but that was the message we got. So, you know, it's kind of open season on it, as far as I've heard, so there we go.
Yeah, to follow up on why I asked that question, and thank you, Tom, that's good information. I asked the question because it's, we have a lot on our plate this year. And if the maps are not going to be completed in time that we can sufficiently reconcile them with any code, I just, it's a lot of effort. And I don't want to race to get the WUI code done and then, have
Find
it not
yourselves in the same
be
boat we
coordinated.
were in.
Yeah, exactly.
Roger?
Yeah, so I'm, first off, I think given what has happened in Washington as well as what just happened in LA, the adoption of a WUI code, this is my personal opinion, should be a priority. Now, and the adoption, the WUI code last time was right after I came on board with the State Building Code Council, so I don't recall all of the details, but given even our conversation today, the DNR maps were the problem, which that's my memory, which kind of leads me to two conclusions or thoughts. Number one, I think Angela mentioned, should this group get public comment out there in relationship to the WUI code if people have no confidence in us, somehow trying to change that narrative to clarify what was done last time and what we are tasked to do, etc. So I would support that, I think, kind of clarifying, they weren't our maps. We did base our decisions on the maps being made available and being reasonable, and that maybe didn't happen. But part two is, somebody here raised the question, can we adopt the current WUI code without maps? And I'm, obviously from what Tom just said, I guess what I would, if it is possible to adopt a WUI code without maps, and that is a step one, with step two being, all right, once the DNR gets the maps done, we do a more comprehensive WUI code. Just from the 10,000 foot level, that would make a lot of sense to me. I qualify that by saying I really don't know a whole lot about the WUI code, so whether that's even possible to do it without maps. So, and Dustin, I think right now we are planning on doing the WUI code as part of the 2024 adoption cycle, right? That's part of our group too.
Yes, sir. And hearing Chell's point that it's a big lift to do work that might have to be completely turned around to relate to maps. I did have some thoughts on what we could do to get a WUI code adopted in Washington without maps. That being that chapter 3 and 4 deal mainly with water supply and road access to the individual sites. Per what we have here on the screen in the with the proposed legislation, all counties and towns may adopt an international WUI code published by ICC in whole or in any portion thereof. And then we look at subsection 4, all counties, cities, and towns that may complete their own wildfire hazard base level maps. My thought was potentially removing the sections that are covered by other RCWs in Washington, so the water supply and the road access, and making the WUI code via the WAC an optional code that is available with amendments that remove those confusing parts for local jurisdictions to use. If they already have maps on hand, then they could say, we are using this code, with the state amendments, and hopefully that wouldn't be necessarily a misstep or, taken in bad faith. And there's room for other amendments in there as well. I think that the big concern is if a local jurisdiction wants to use it, the way the code is or the statute is written now, does not allow any modification to it because it all impacts residential construction. So, at least without a prior approval from the SBCC. So I would like to entertain something like that potentially for the 2021 and also the 2024 if we feel that the maps are the key part to getting a robust Washington WUI code.
Okay, well, again, I'm not that familiar with the WUI code, but I just at the 10,000 foot level, adopting something, getting something out there, I think is important, given where we're at with the wildfire, expansion of the wildfire season, whatever you want to call it, in the current climate of, I don't know, where we're at today with the fires that we've had and fires in California and the damage that's been done, the impact that it's going to have to insurance rates, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Getting something, I think, getting something out there available is important. And if that more robust has to happen later, once the DNR finally gets the mapping done, great, let's do that. But getting something in the meantime, I think is important.
Gotcha. I would echo the sentiment. Jay?
One of the concerns last round that we heard a lot of cities was the interaction between the code and the maps. And my view of what happened last time, which I agree was a failure on what happened, is that as we were thinking about what the WUI code looked like, we might have had in our mind an idea of where it would apply. And when the maps came out, the areas that were in that wildland urban interface were widespread, including many, many cities that didn't think that they would have to do these standards. And so they would apply in a much greater scope than I think was intended when we were looking at the particular standards. So I do think, Roger, that there is some map code interplay that needs to happen to make sure that it's appropriate, given what we might have in cities where we have trees, but we don't think of them as forest and the risks, and don't think of this as the same level of wildfire risk that of our cities that do abut forests. So that said, I appreciate what you're saying about we want to give jurisdictions options. And my particular concern is is there a piece of this work that we can do in parallel, and what is active when? When you look at the code in the bill in section 2, it says upon the completion of the statewide hazard map, the technical provisions of the International Wildland Urban Interface Code shall be in effect, basically.
The very
And
adopted and be implemented.
it should be implemented. And so I would want to look at what some language is on that. Does that mean we need to have something ready when the maps are adopted? Because Dustin's right, we're going to want to make some potential modifications for it. And even as an appendix, we want to make sure that it's appropriate for Washington State. And some of the feedback that I have gotten is people questioning, what does this bill do? Does it put the ICC code into effect? And in whole. And I fear that it does, especially in a timing window, if we don't look at what we're doing and perhaps some changes in the bill that would allow us time to consider the maps once they're adopted before we adopt final code. So I think two things are going to need to happen. One is, as I do think there may need to be some language changes in the bill And secondly, I think as the full SBCC, not necessarily this committee, we should look at timing and say, is there some work where we could start on the WUI and work in parallel as DNR updates the maps? Thanks.
Angela?
Yeah, I agree completely with Jay on what the problem was with the original maps. And I also agree with what Roger said about kind of getting our version out there. I think someone from the legislative committee or whatever does need to go to this next hearing to give, sort of lay out what did happen, because as far as the legislatures and the public know, those maps were developed by us. We did this, we created those, and we blew it. So I think letting people know what really happened is good. And I looked back at Micah's email that I think you got too. And what he said is he wanted something modified, that it should be modified to provide a reasonable timeline for rule development, which again, I completely agree with that. It should be the maps. The maps are done. And then we take the WUI code that we've developed in the tag and we see if changes need to be made based on what the mapping says. But I still think that we should move forward with rulemaking or with the tag on it to at least look at it for what portions absolutely we don't want to use, what portions, might need tweaked for us, things like that. And then lastly, as far as an update on the DNR maps, so they did not receive the appropriate level of funding in order to do the work for the new maps. So they are significantly behind, and they are just starting the exploratory committee in February. That was the current update that we received on that. So just as a heads up. Thanks.
I've been listening and doing a lot of reading, and I'm sorry, I kind of forgot what I was gonna say with my hand up. So I'll come back to it here. Go ahead, Todd, sorry.
In there. Yeah, thank you. So, really good points today. I think, Dustin, first of all, commend you for doing a really good job representing the council at the meeting. I do think we need also to have representation from a council member. So I think we need to continually show up and be present and be able to inform. There's a lot of misinformation, and that's what we can help with by informing and being present. There's also a lot of disinformation, and I think it is important that we do now start to communicate very clearly a strategy, whether there's collateral that goes with that, meaning one pagers, things like that. We need to be able to communicate, a plan going forward. And I do believe that doing nothing in this cycle is not an option. There's plenty to do in terms of developing the code and rulemaking in anticipation of maps, or to be applied with local maps, because there's a lot of jurisdictions, cities and counties that are doing a great job of developing their own structure, and as it should be. This is a case where local input is really important. So we need to move forward. And so I don't know what the plan is to have somebody represent us, but it's always had a positive effect to I don't want to say combat, because it's not. I don't want to set up these binaries, but I was kind of disappointed in just the lack of understanding of the process and the tax on the process. We just need to be a little more there to communicate what the process is, because it is confusing. So thanks.
Angel?
Okay, sorry, I've talked enough, but I just forgot one thing on the last one. For those that are talking about, using the WUI without or before we have the maps, just just FYI, the actual base code of the WUI for the mapping refers to mapping done by local jurisdictions. And it gives you the methodology on how they're supposed to do it and stuff. So that's what the WUI without like over like state maps, that's what it refers to. So just so you know.
Gotcha.
It may just say, just Angela, absolutely, just that point alone, continually repeating that is important to explain to people. That's how it's already set up.
Alrighty. It might be appropriate if we could maybe get a representative of the committee here to maybe draft a letter with some of these concerns to address to Representative Doer on these. And I'd be happy to facilitate delivery, or if you already have her contact, maybe deliver as well. But we have a little bit of time left here before I have to jump off of this one. And I wanted to make an ask of the group for the embodied carbon bill that's on our plate right now, HB 1458. I was hoping that you guys could read through that one and just give me your take on it, on how it impacts the SBCC as I review that. And we got some folks from Department of Commerce reaching out, and I'm looking for some assistance on making sure I catch all the impacts as appropriate to the SBCC. So I'll yield to Tom.
Yeah, I read through that yesterday, or attempted to. Is all of that information really and truly readily available for all of the building materials that might be used in a commercial building? Or is this just some lab experiment that some research people are trying to implement on a large scale? I mean, I'm really curious about this, because to me it seemed kind of far-fetched to be putting it as a code issue, today. I don't know. It's a serious question.
Answer for you on that one, but Chell.
Dustin, do you have the bill? Are you able to show that while we're talking?
Yeah, give me 2 seconds.
Sorry, thank you.
Yeah, this is information that is readily available
Okay.
for products on the list of products that would be part of this. The information is readily available for a wide variety of products. We do, for example, this kind of analysis on every project we do as an architecture firm. And many of our partner architecture and structural engineering firms do this same kind of analysis. And in fact, at the scale of buildings that's being talked about, I would suggest that most of the buildings in Washington that are meeting this have some embodied carbon approach levied on them. Those firms, those size of 8 people that do embodied carbon analysis on projects, it's not just a medium to large firm, architecture firm kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. It was fun to me. So
no, I could talk your ear off about this stuff, because it's a big evolution over the last decade. A decade ago, almost nobody had heard of this, and now, like Cal Green, every building in the state over a certain size has to do this kind of thing. So this is based on Cal Green, basically, which is covering many other buildings. Colorado has some regulations like this, and if you look at the Carbon Leadership Forum report that the State Building Code Council was part of, commissioned, they talk about other places that have codes kind of like this. And anyone in the council, I'm happy to, or the committee, I'm happy to have a sidebar conversation on high deep dive into this kind of stuff. But I don't want to take up too much time with it. I think overall, generally, this is a good way to approach the problem. But of course, there's always details of, something is slightly better than something else. So I think we might have comments on this. But overall, the approach has been done in other places.
Since we're dealing with this both in the rulemaking and in here in the policy making, I would express support but concern that it dictates what the target, I mean, what they're comparing against, and specifically the industry average. I think this is going to be something that is better dealt with in public process and rulemaking rather than in the legislature. But I'll express that as a concern.
Gotcha. So as we navigate this particular bill, I plan on sending out a PDF version of it to everybody, just so you can have on the file. I'm just asking for a read through. Let me know your thoughts on it so I can incorporate it into our thoughts on it within DES. And then I fully anticipate we'll probably want to talk about it a little bit at tomorrow's council meeting as well. And then the last one I wanted
Hey,
to just,
Dustin, when does this go up? I haven't looked recently.
it's not on any schedule for a hearing yet.
Okay, thank you.
And then the last one, I don't, I would like some input, but I don't think it's the highest priority. Those membership for the State Building Code Council bill, Senate Bill 5429. I'll include that one in the mailing to everybody and just get some thoughts on that one as well. I don't think it's going to ask necessarily anything be done by us for code adoption. It just might mean we have some new members coming on board. And with that, I don't have anything else for the group today before I need to jump out of here.
It'd probably mean we have to rewrite our bylaws again.
A little bit, yeah.
Dustin,
work
are
in
you
progress.
closing the meeting when you leave here, or are we going to continue?
I don't have to close the meeting, but I think that with what we have going on, you could continue some other business. But as long I can ask Annette to stay on to keep minutes for after I'm out of here. Does that
Okay,
sound
sure. I
good?
have a couple other comments if you're willing, but I mean, it's up to you.
Yeah, I'm fine with you guys staying on. Annette, do you mind hanging out for some additional minutes?
I will hang on.
Okay, awesome. Well, then with that, I'll leave you guys to it. I appreciate everybody's time and input on these matters at hand, and we'll just keep on doing the good work. Thanks again.
Thanks, Dustin. All right, then we will go on to item number 5 is other business.
Oh, Chair, I was going to ask about one more bill if that was possible.
Oh, yeah, no, go ahead. Sure.
Okay. The new one, the Senate Bill 5429, which is the one that's specifically related to the makeup of the Building Code Council. I don't know how and when that'd be most appropriate to kind of talk about that and whether or not our opinions matter, but you know, I understand the intent there, but it's very heavy in certain sectors and so forth. So it'd be good to have a forum sometime to talk about it.
Yeah, it's so I didn't look through that one. How many does it add?
Well, I haven't gone through there, but it adds 2 or 3 seats in general construction, and it does a nice job of breaking down into single family, multifamily, sustainable building, construction, so
Share the
forth. And
bill. I could share a screen with the bill if you
yeah,
wanted to look.
but
at
it's just it's something we definitely should, you know, give feedback at least on what those dynamics could mean.
Yeah, that would make sense. Angela?
It adds 8 new spots. It goes to 21. It includes adding, I think, a spot for a plumbing representative, a mechanical representative, and then a bunch of different, basically builder types. It breaks them down into very specific builder types for the rest of them. And then it changes, instead of saying how many members have to be, you know, east of the Cascades or whatever, it breaks it down into the size of the city or county that you actually reside in, as far as if you're able to serve or not, is basically.
Yeah, that would be good for a a broader council discussion, I mean, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is, establishing quorum. The larger the group, sometimes I don't know, for a whole lot of volunteers, getting everybody all together at the same time. It can get kind of tough. I mean, there's ample opportunity during the committees and tags, I think, to get a lot of people involved, but that's my opinion. Roger?
Yeah, I just read this as well. So I haven't put a lot of thought into it, but the first thing that comes to mind is we've sometimes had difficulty finding people to fill spots. Certainly on the tags, and I think even on the council positions. So and in fact, one of those what jumps out at me is now it looks like there are 5 general construction of various and that actually has been one of the positions we've had a difficult time filling. So it's one thing to idealize and put the perfect group out, list the positions out there, but the reality, I mean, we certainly find it on the tags is at the end of the day, we need people that know what they're talking about and are committed to volunteering their time. So
And I take it these two would be government appointed by the governor, like the rest. Todd?
Yeah, yes, and we all have to remember, they all have to be nominated by a trade association now, by the largest trade association that represents them. So I think if I express concern, or maybe express desire for someone to help map out the representation across the entire value chain of delivering buildings, right, all the way from design to the end, because I think that's an important input here. Not so this doesn't become a political. I mean, it is political; it's in the bill, but what I'm saying is what is really representative of how buildings get delivered. And so I would say, I would feel that the licensed professionals on the design side are underrepresented if the shift goes this hard towards the to the end of the supply chain or into the value chain. But this is just my first read on it, and I don't have an analysis to respond to. So, thank you.
Any other discussion on this particular bill or any of the other ones? Jay?
For the wildlife urban interface bill, we talked about having someone from the council testify. Have we, do we want to discuss if that's a member of this committee, or is that something we punt till tomorrow to identify who that is?
Well, Todd did such a great job last time.
I'm happy enough and I'm geeky enough to want to do it, but I think what maybe my intent there would be, we should have somebody representing the appointed council members and but also be in those meetings so that it also gives our managing director a little cover too, right? That there's 2 people that are in those conversations and hearing, and yeah. Otherwise, you could. I fear that we're putting Dustin at risk of sometimes. So
Getting ambushed.
yeah, we're here to take some of the heat.
Yeah, agreed. So do you want to push that till tomorrow, discussion tomorrow then, you think?
It's appropriate and desire of the chair, council chair.
Okay. Chell?
Yeah, we have a very packed agenda tomorrow and we may not get through the whole thing. So I guess if we suggested somebody today to do that, then if we don't get to it tomorrow, at least somebody's on the hook for it. And I am not putting my head in the ring because I've got the energy code coming up and I that's plenty of heat and plenty of busyness for me.
Would you mind being on deck, Todd?
No, I'm happy to. Thank you. I would actually be
Okay.
honored to do it, but thanks. I
mean,
wasn't asking for it, but I'm happy
Yeah.
to serve. Yes.
I mean, I'd be happy to help you.
Okay. Maybe that's the
Craft-
way to do it. Is we just
craft
coordinate, and as long
stuff.
as we have the awareness that that's the intent of this committee, then
You need to vote on
you and I
this
can
one,
coordinate.
or-
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you clean up pretty well, and you know.
Sounds
Well, thank
like
you.
a motion. I'd like to move to designate Todd as our representative to meet with Representative Dewar on the Wildland Urban Interface Bill.
I'll second that one.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion on that?
Tom, did you want to be part of that as well? Part of the motion or?
With
All right, I'll help. Great.
I'll
Okay.
see that change.
Okay. Any other discussion on that?
Yeah, I would, you kind of, Jay and Tom kind of talked over each other. So are we adding Tom as an alternate? Is that what I heard?
Yes,
I'm just going to work with Todd on
Okay,
the
We'll coordinate
delivery.
everything. Yeah.
okay.
Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I think we still have a quorum. All right. So motion carries. All right. Anything else on any of the bills before us? All right. New business. Other business. Item number 5. All right. Saying nothing. We'll actually get out a little early if nobody's got anything else they want to bring forward. All right. Item number 6. Not up for debate. Motion to adjourn.
Oh, so moved if you're looking for it. Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
All right. We'll see y'all tomorrow.
All right. Thank you.